I was just thinking as I was uploading the videos here to get started, it's been a long week. And then I realized that it's only Tuesday. Oh, man. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. It's not even Wednesday. Oh boy. Position disclosure. I got out of XBI at the very end of the day. I still have IBB. I sold some TNA and UPRO puts today. Um, that's all that I've got. Don't worry, I can't read Spanish anyway, assuming that that is Spanish. Um, let's take a look at the charts. Sorry, my charts are a mess. Let's fix them up. Boom. Guess I only really need one. Um, yeah, so it was a really strong day. Buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. So the spies finished up 0.4%. That feels like more, but it was a we were down over a percentage point at one point into that like pre-market capitulatory move down to like 482 or whatever it was in the spies. So it feels like a really big up move. We're only up 0.5% or so, but from low to highs, it was pretty big. Qs are up 0.75%, and the IWM is up 0.75%. The TLT still finished green. It seemed like it was trading higher initially on fear, um, but it was able to hold in, and the dollar finished flat on the day. So popping over to the daily chart, maybe we'll reference a pre-market chart. Um, yeah, so my thought process really hasn't changed. Started to buy the dip a little bit on Friday afternoon, added to that yesterday, added to that again pre-market this morning. Starting pretty early actually, starting like 5:30 in the morning. I was buying the dip a little bit pre-market. Thought I was like once again got some pretty good prices by 8 a.m. I thought I had pretty good prices from the pre-market session, and then we started getting hit really, really hard here at 8:15. Um, it seems like we were getting hit, even though the news had been out for a little while, on escalations of the Ukraine-Russia tensions. That's what it seemed like. So the headlines were hitting about, you know, Russia changing their nuclear policies, Ukraine potentially also changing their nuclear policies, just further escalation with, I guess, Ukrainian long range missiles that were probably provided by the United States being sent into Russia from Ukraine. So that's I think what created all this escalation. And again, I saw that stuff last night, and then we were seeing it this morning. And then it's always funny how all of a sudden the market sometimes decides to take notice of things for whatever reason. The algos or people or whatever decided to pick this up starting at like 8:15, and we sold really really hard as we were coming into the morning meeting. We were escalating down, and it's funny, the game plan that I tried to begin to lay out at 9 a.m. when we did the morning meeting basically took place between 9 a.m. and 9:15, all during the course of the morning meeting. I was like, all right, we're set to now be below Friday's low, but we're having a 1% plus gap down at this point. We're accelerating down. I think we can look for an opening dip to buy and then see if the market can recapture Friday's low. Friday's low will be key. By that point in time, we won't be extended on the small time frames anymore, and then we can see if we're actually breaking higher for this to be a real viable dip, or if we, you know, um, satisfy our opening downside extension and then break opening lows, that would actually confirm that this market rally is failing a little bit more. And literally that all happened while I was saying it. We got this pivot low at the 9 a.m. candle with some downside extension on the 5 minute into 582. We were down over a percentage point, and all while I was even talking, we recaptured Friday's low, and by the time the market opened, we were, well above Friday's low and almost back into the inside day range from yesterday. So that trade happened very quickly. Didn't really give anybody the opportunity to actually take that trade during market hours. You kind of had to be doing it even as I was saying it in the morning meeting this morning. And then when we actually opened up, we still opened up with a decent gap down, but you can see we opened up at 584, almost 585, instead of we were as low as a little bit below 582. So we opened up after a $3 bounce with some downside extension. We had a little bit of a bounce for an additional 15 minutes, getting us up to 580, 580, and that ADMA was catching up. This became a pivot point. We broke the opening low in the SPYs, but we did not break the opening low in the Qs or in the IWM. And even though the opening low in the SPYs broke, I didn't think that was the end of the world because we were so significantly off the pre-market low at that point. I know in the morning meeting I said, watch after equilibrium, after the extension gets satisfied and equilibrium catches up to price, watch to see if we break the opening low. That could be a warning sign. But that that thought process when I said in the morning meeting was meant for an expected opening low at 582 plus, not 585 or 584.50. So not the end of the world when we tailed through the opening low here with the SPYs. The Qs and the IWM held in just fine. They never even broke their opening low, and we never got anywhere near to getting close to the um, the pre-market low. Obviously, some really scary headlines this morning, but you know, uh, when it comes to nuclear war, maybe like an initial dirty bomb or small bomb, something like that, if it went off, could be really, really bad for the markets. But if we have like a full on global nuclear winter, your money doesn't matter anyway. So that's a dip that I'm usually willing to buy, and I'm just still stuck on the flow. I'm glad to be back on what I think is the right side of the market, which is the long side of the market. I remember earlier in November when we were super extended to the upside, and I had all these shorts on, and I was like frustrated because I didn't want to be short. I really wanted to be long. But extension rules and trading rules are the key to consistency, and I got to follow those rules no matter what. And then luckily the market bailed me out a little bit with a solid price correction Thursday, Friday last week. Let me get out of almost all my shorts except for Palantir, and then enabled me to start really, really buying this dip. And I think as you guys have seen, just my position numbers increasing to 30 plus positions at a certain point today. Every one of them being long, except for Palantir. Really coming in and taking advantage of this dip buy, trying to take advantage of the seasonality effect, trying to take advantage of the $6 billion a day in corporate buybacks that are currently ongoing. What I expect is continued vol selling that's going on that I think helps to create a little bit of an underlying bid or cushion into any down moves. So I want to be long this market. I'm looking for an upside grind into the end of the year. I'm able to get totally on sides, and I'm looking for further upside continuation at this point, while just continuing to manage positions per my game plan. So the game plan today was to come in and to buy the nuclear warfares. As crazy as that sounds, it seems like it's a trade that has consistently worked. And for all of the increase in escalation, I also have this in the back of my mind with the Russia Ukraine thing. This is coming from an administration that is on the way out. So, no saying exactly what the next administration is going to do, but it seems like they are going to probably work towards ending things in one form or another. But we'll see how that plays out, and we'll see what, if any, effect it has on the market. Because honestly, the Russia Ukraine situation has not really impacted the market since it first started back in 2022. In which case, there was a really big move on it initially, and then just like the many other wars that have been ongoing through my trading lifetime, um, the market just stops caring about it after it initially happens. So this was the first time I think we saw like any price movement at all on Ukraine Russia since 2022, basically since it started. But that just created an opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, for a deeper technical dip to buy, and I want to be on the long side of the market unless we get back to extreme upside extension. But we're nowhere near extreme upside extension. We literally closed today with the spies on the ADMA on the daily, so we'd have to be making new all-time highs actually for the market to get extremely upside extended. NVIDIA has the potential to derail things a little bit. NVIDIA is a major event. It can derail things with the S&P. It could derail things with the NASDAQ. So we will see how NVIDIA plays out. I'm still a little bit concerned that the NVIDIA risk is to the downside, especially after such a big move today. Nvidia was also a really good day trade today. Again, shout out to Bill on providing some of the information on the Nvidia 150 calls that were going off. I'm pretty sure they were calls for 150. So that kind of knowing that information, that Nvidia was the only major stock outside of the indexes early in the day today that was seeing a lot of real bullish option flow. It gave me the conviction to, I didn't do it in a huge way, but to buy this pivot low right in here into this equilibrium area. Almost actually got stopped out on the 10 a.m. candle because I had my stop at the low of the 9:55 candle, but managed to not get shaken out of that one, which is nice. And then the trade worked out really well. I did get shaken out of something today, and I don't remember what it was. And I wanted to bring it up just to show that I get shaken out of stuff too. But I just don't remember what it was. I traded. Oh, it was Tesla. I got shaken out of Tesla, I think, and then I think it worked. Yeah, it worked okay without me. I'm seeing. I tried buying this pivot low here in Tesla at 10:45. I kept it tight. I got pushed out. It put in a deeper low, like a 15-minute correction, which makes sense at 11 a.m. and then worked a little bit, but never gave any real upside follow through on the Tesla trade. And I was still able to more than cover my risk, all within the confines of this little tail bounce back that it actually gave before it stopped me out. So more than covered my risk on it. Finished very small green, but basically break even for all intents and purposes before getting stopped out. That's why execution is so important. Execution is oftentimes the difference between being able to be break even or having a small winner on trades that fail versus just taking straight out losses on trades that fail. Trying to think if I have anything else to talk about. I mean, but the buy the dip mentality is where my head's at. I did exit XBI into the close above $93. Um, I do still have IBB though. IBB did not bounce as well, so just reduced a little bit of that biotech exposure. I do still have some Moderna. Moderna was atrocious today. I don't know why, but it was really bad. I know we looked at Amazon long versus like 200 pre-market was discussed. I see that the low was 198.78, which means it might have broken that pre-market low also. So I'm not sure if anybody was able to catch that. It happened all off the first 5-minute bar though. So that trade worked out great. On the XBI that I just mentioned was also a great RDR today. It triggered back through yesterday's low on the first 5-minute bar and never broke that low again. So just a great RDR trade for XBI for this snapback where traders could have gotten involved in this thing for pretty low risk for 30, 33, 34 cents worth of risk on the XBI buy. So that was I thought a pretty good trade. Amazon we just discussed, great long off the opening low. I didn't end up taking it, but it worked out really well. Google was like the first one to go green, had a very deep pullback at 10:30, but was the first one to go green. We had this one on the radar for a buy. I know I had one. I had written down 175 as the price to buy, and then when I looked at it, getting to 175, which was basically a gap fill at the same time, and it was relatively strong, but I didn't want to buy this thing with over a dollar risk at 175, so I kept my core swing position that I already had on and didn't do anything new with it. So I'm not sure if anybody was able to capture it. I think that the buy on that was actually much trickier than buying XBI or even buying Amazon. But it still worked if anybody was able to capture it. Apple, a little bit slower. There's a very wide resistance range between 228 and 230 that we're looking at on the upside. Um, that one was probably just okay. What did XLF end up doing today? Never broke 50. Still never cleared. But anyway, regardless of what you decided to focus on, I think at the open this morning, Bill gave us the information that um, 91% of stocks were red at the open, and I'm curious to know what percentage of stocks are green at the close. I would assume it's a pretty good percentage because it seemed like there was a lot of participation in this rally today. So overall, I think a really good day, a really good day for the buy the dip mentality, which is the thought process that we were coming into this day with. And that's pretty much all I got, unless you want me to complain more about the pump and dump situation that happened in Friday on Palantir as I see it, because I'm happy to do that. I'm gonna keep talking about this over and over and over again until something happens, and nothing's gonna happen. So I'm so mad about this. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Um, so scrolling up here in the VTF to see if I missed anything. I thought it was Wednesday and was waiting for NVIDIA, and then I realized it's Tuesday. That's how I feel. I know it's only Tuesday. It feels like it's been a long week. The SPX had 62% of stocks are still down. I thought that the rally was wider than that, was broader than that. I'm surprised to see that number, but I obviously believe you. I guess it was a select few stocks. Nvidia was super strong today, so Nvidia was up 5%. That has a big impact on the S&P. So maybe some degree of dispersion there. 62% of stocks are down, and Nvidia is up 5%. Um, Tate, I agree with NVIDIA risk being to the downside, though if it's up on the report, I think today can easily be the low for the market into the end of the year. I agree with you, Tate. I agree with you. I think that unless NVIDIA is so bad, it doesn't even have to be so bad, but the reaction to it is so bad that it derails the indexes. Um, if NVIDIA holds in and goes sideways even, let alone goes up, I kind of feel like today has a good probability of being a low for the rest of the calendar year. I like the thought process. Roll Amazon flash down there off the open. It was a bit scary for 2 minutes, but otherwise was fine. Yeah, everything was a little bit scary. I felt that at the open this morning. A bunch of those names, that XBI also, that quick downside tail. Um, was joking in the VTF when Pat was on the radio into the close, and when I said you just have to believe. Um, that's obviously a joke. Just believing that things is going to go up is not going to make them go up. You approach the market with evidence, and then have your technicals confirm that evidence. I think that the evidence, as I see it, is bullish, and the technicals were able to confirm that. If you look for the long off the opening low, looking for the long off the opening low was exactly what we were talking about. Cool. So that is that question on Amazon. Thoughts on SMCI from Jerry. I didn't really look at this SMCI too much today, to be totally honest with you. I guess they have an accounting firm now. It's a company that I never heard of. It's certainly not one of the big four or big five accounting firms, whatever the number is. Um, so I don't know anything about it. I think we still need to see more information, but it's a good start. So if they're able to meet the Nasdaq requirements, then maybe they're not going to get kicked off the Nasdaq, and maybe Palantir is not going to be on the Nasdaq. But I don't really have too much for you on this SMCI. Technically, I don't think it's bullish. I know it was up 30 something percent or whatever today, but it's got to get above and hold above $30. It's got to make a higher low and then a higher high, and then the technicals will become a little bit more bullish on this thing. For now, it's just an oversold bounce to the 21 EMA and to $30 resistance. So I'm not convinced on this thing technically. I'm not knowledgeable enough on it story wise to tell you that that's changed on that end. From Roble, semis aside, which tech stocks should field NVIDIA report the most? All the semis, obviously, and then any name that's involved in the AI story should move just a little bit on NVIDIA. So Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, some degree Apple, but Apple I feel like is a little bit more insulated. Um, and then then you got your like AIs of the world that probably get impacted a bit by NVIDIA, or like a path probably gets impacted by NVIDIA. So NVIDIA's got pretty wide ranging consequences. From Jerry, also systems were mentioned in the VTF today, such as GetVec. Could you update the team on other systems used in addition to our trading execution software? It's definitely a better question for Pat. Pat uses a lot of different resources. I don't really use very much. So I know who owns GetVec, and they gave me a tutorial of it back in like 2017 or so in their offices. Um, to me, it looks. I don't know if anybody got on there, getvec.com, or registered for it today. I'm pretty sure it's free. It's always been free for me at least. I think it's always been free, but they've had the idea of wanting to charge people at some point in the future, and it's a pretty good resource. I haven't looked at the updated version, and honestly, I don't use it that much anymore. I'll log in every once in a while to try to find news if I can't find it because um, it was always a really good tool. It was never very aesthetically pleasing, but it always had a great functionality where you could just type in any symbol and see if it got an upgrade or a downgrade or a price target increase or see if there was news on it. It was a pretty good functionality. I think that their goal has always been to get it big enough starting for free and then try to charge people for it. I'm assuming it's still free for now. So check it out. It's a pretty cool tool. I honestly don't use it that often just because the VTF does such a good job getting the same information in. So I just use the VTF. But that's it. For me personally, I look at some stuff on Twitter. Um, Jim gave us that one Twitter handle that's really good. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, Jim. If you're here and you want to remind me, otherwise I can look it up. Um, I look a little bit at like Wall Street Jesus sometimes. But I basically just use the VTF and I use my trading software, and that's it. But it's good to have some other resources, and get that could be a really good resource for traders who want to be able to see news and upgrades and downgrades and earnings reports and all that information. And I'm pretty sure it's free, at least for the moment. So worth checking out. From Carol. So out of three NVIDIA earnings outcomes, two are bullish on NVIDIA, meaning we have a 60% market goes higher. I don't follow you. Of the three, so if you're referring to three NVIDIA earnings outcomes, meaning like a massive beat or an inline or a miss, I would say that two out of the three of those are bearish. I think an inline report is bearish for the stock. I think a miss is bearish for the stock. I think even a small beat might not be bullish for the stock. It's got to be a big beat. Um, so that's why I think that the risk is the downside on Nvidia. But we'll see. You never know what's going to happen. You don't want to count Nvidia out. They have a reputation of destroying earnings reports, right? From Tate, can you talk more about this Tello and how you trade it when you are aware you are the biggest player in intraday? Okay. Tello. I didn't want to mention it when I was buying it just because it's so thin that I don't know. I don't want to be like pumping the stock to people as buying like a large amount of stock compared to the volume that it does. Uh, but I'm not even making money in this stock still at this point. I'm probably only break even-ish after this move. I bought a small position in this Tello. I honestly can't even tell you exactly where. I think it was somewhere in early October, so at a much higher price. But an inconsequential position for me, to be honest. Almost like a small cash position in this thing, just because I thought that the story was interesting, um, with the telomeres and lengthening the telomeres and like almost being like the miracle of life. So I bought like a little position in this thing, and I've added to it really really small on the way down. But even with the position being super super small, it starts to add up a little bit when the stock is almost starting to get cut in half against you. But the position was so small that it was inconsequential. I remember watching it trade in this like $4 to $5 range here for a little while. You had this pop up to five, it fell down. It was trying to hold its $4 support. It tried to pop again, but it was in the lower high. It fell back down, so it created like a descending wedge here that broke down, broke through four, and then it after the four break, this thing just got grossly sold down. It is a biotech stock. So my thought process, I looked at this last night actually when it closed on lows and got destroyed down, and thought about buying some into the close yesterday, and then I didn't. I decided to wait for today. And then, this morning when the stock opened up, I'm already looking for a bounce in biotech broadly. And individual biotech stocks, I don't like trading individual biotech stocks. I tend to stay away from them because it's always the individual biotech stock that you wake up one day and it's at 30 cents. Like for this thing, it could open up at zero one day because everything failed in their trials or whatever, or it could open up at like $100 one night. Like that's exaggerating, but that's how these individual biotech stocks work. I tend to avoid them. I tend to stay away from them. But honestly, my position was small enough that if it did open at zero, it still would have been relatively inconsequential. So, um, it's a pretty thin stock, but I like the idea of buying biotech. There was an RDR trade here in it this morning. So, pretty much at the open, yeah, on the first bar of the day, I bought a lot of stock. Uh, the first bar of the day, the volume on this bar is 5,400 shares. Um, my buying is well more than half of that. And then when it started to trade back up through 330 here at 10 a.m., I was trying to add actually. I was trying to buy even more because that was when the RDR was actually triggering. I couldn't really get anything on the ad because it just kind of went, and I don't like to pay up too much. I wasn't taking offers. I was throwing bids out. So I like at 10 a.m. I put like a few more really big bids to try to get filled on those. My thought process was, if I get filled on them, great. I'll take the stock. If I don't get filled on them, I'm not. I don't care that the market knows that there's a big buyer in this name right now, and I'm that buyer because I already have enough stock from what I already had coming into today and what I bought in this first bar. Um, and that was basically it. I started to dump the stock that I bought at the open basically into $4. And then above $4, I kind of continued to just sell out on some of my more core position, and that was pretty much it. I don't like trading names that are this thin, to be honest. It's a $3 stock, so it's manageable. But I don't like how this thing trades, to be totally honest, as I've been in it. I like things that have a little more liquidity. I like things that have a little bit more movement. I like things that are a little bit more tradable. This thing just gets stuck and doesn't move. And then I don't know, I got lucky. I don't know if I was the technical trigger of my buying that then set off a wave of additional buying that was able to make this thing go up 30 something percent, or if there was other news, or another buyer came in and looked at it, or a short that was short decided to exit his position. I really have no idea. what continued this move and increased this maximizing volume here at highs. But that's what I did in the beginning of the day. And then there was enough volume here and movement on the upside that I was actually able to sell into that buyer on the way up as well. So it worked out really well, and I can't believe it, but it's my best name on the day. I mean, it's up 30 something percent, so it makes sense. It's not a massive position, but it's somehow managed to be my best name on the day today. So yep, that's Tello. From Carol, SMCI Doji on higher volume. We should see if tomorrow there is follow up. If not, then it could be lower. Yeah, for me, just going purely based on the technicals, I would rather be short than long off $30, off today's high, off the 21 EMA, off the Doji candle. But it's a story change here. So I think that you have to have an idea of what that changes in the story and create a thesis for yourself, because I don't know enough about the story. I know that Ernst and Young quit, and that's really really bad. But maybe this other accounting company comes in and says, "Hey, there was no problem. Ernst and Young was wrong. We have proof to show it." I'm just making this up. I have no idea. And the stock is right back to $50 because that's where it belongs. Or maybe this is some fly-by-night accounting firm. I've never heard of them before, but I'm not an accounting specialist by any means. And you got a really big pop on SMCI today, but it's meaningless, and it's just retesting a level and an upside correction, and it fails right back down to lows. I have no idea. But that's information that you should probably research if you decide that you want to get involved in the stock. With that said, purely technically speaking, I'd rather be short into 30 than buying it. It's trying to be the next Arthur Anderson. Oh man. From Tony V. Can you share your thoughts on Kava with a stop at 132? We can take a look. Um, it's a really deep stop. I don't know where you're getting the 132 number from. I'll start by saying that. So I'd love to know where you're coming up with 132. The pivot low from yesterday, which I would say is important, is 133. This larger pivot low from November 1st is 129.50. So those are daily stops. If I was long the stock, I'd rather use the 133 stop. And either way, if you're already in it, great. And you can use yesterday's low, I think, as an appropriate technical stop. And let's see what kind of bounce back you can get. I would not buy 142 versus 133, though. I don't like that risk reward at all. This thing had an earnings report back here on November 13th. I didn't take a good look at it, so I don't have a lot of feedback for you on that report. I thought I remember it being decent, but for whatever reason, it was good enough to gap up, but bad enough for them to sell it back down. So you had 2 heavy days off of selling off of that, which sometimes it's not the end of the world. Stock was just really elevated. They gap it up big on the earnings report. It's an opportunity for big players to book some profit. It bases out, goes back up, and maybe even eventually breaks that high. But this candle is a negative Maribozu sell off on an earnings report. It's a pretty damning candle. It's going to be hard to negate that candle. So that's why I'm saying I don't like the risk reward of buying like 140, 150 where it is right now versus 133. You could probably get a decent bounce back to 150, but that's barely 1 to 1 on a risk reward versus that low if you're buying here. If you have the stock from a better price during the day to day, or you have it from yesterday, then I think that that's a good pivot low that you can utilize as a stop, and you have a better risk reward, and you might be able to get follow through up to 150. So that's it. 132 is the 50 day. So I don't like using moving averages as stops. So that would be a piece of feedback that I would give to you personally. Moving averages are not support and resistance. They're just squiggly lines on a chart. I greatly prefer to utilize price points that matter to the stock where buyers stepped in and took control from sellers. So for example, yesterday's low is an actual pivot low. I did not mean to scroll in like that. Yesterday's low is an actual pivot low. The price of that is 133 even. So that's the spot where buyers regain control from sellers after this multi-day sell-off coming from the earnings report. So that price is significant to the market. So that's why I would rather use that as a stop. either way, you need to be in it already. I don't think it's a good risk reward to be buying here, unless I know you're mentioning longer term. It depends how much longer term. I mean, if we're talking about an investment, then you want to hold this for 3 years, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. But if you're talking about like active trading, then I don't want to pay up $9 or $10 on a name after it failed off of an earnings report because the reward side of it is limited. So appreciate the question, Tony. I hope that helps. From Kirill, can you take a look at POWL? Moved on earnings after hours. Powell Industries. I never heard of it. I don't know if it's Jerome Powell's company or what. If anybody has the earnings report, we could look at it together. If anybody has the numbers, but the stock is trading down on it. The stock closed today at like 313. Um, Yeah, stock closed at 313. Looks like there was a quick bounce on quick bounce on not a ton of volume up to 327. They sold it all the way down. It pivoted back up. These after hours technicals look sloppy. The spread is $4 wide after hours. It's way too wide to get a real look at this thing. So we can take a look at it again tomorrow, but there's just not enough liquidity after hours to get any thoughts on it. And even in general, we're talking about a $300 stock that trades 500,000 shares in a day. So it's probably not enough liquidity for me to want to be involved in a period. All right, cool. So it covers things in the VTF for the moment. Um, Let me pop over and see what's going on in the YouTube. See if anybody joined us today or not. We got a few comments in here. From Uvixi Bull, the SPY daily candle. The SPY daily candle, inside candle followed by an outside candle right at the level that has acted as both support and resistance within the past few months. Take this instance away. What typically happens? Um, well, when previous resistance gets held as support, it's a catalyst for a market to move higher. When you have an inside day and it gaps below the low of the inside day and recaptures it, that's bullish. When you have an inside day and it gaps below the low of the inside day and not only recaptures that low but breaks the high, that's very bullish. So everything that I'm looking at with these buys off of today's candle has me thinking that this market is looking very bullish after today's trading session for continuation of this move, unless Nvidia derails it. So I hope that helps. From Kevin G, I thought that 494 in the Qs was a good entry. Um, but the pre-market reaction casted doubt on the longs. I scalped too much as opposed to holding for more. Should have been there for our morning meeting. I might have been able to give you a little more conviction on that. I had good conviction today to buy, and that's what I was trying to emphasize to the team in the morning meeting. And it's even what I was emphasizing to the team. We had this kind of long, drawn out consolidation here, which could have led to a failure, right? Look at the Qs, bounce back perfectly to the ADMA, creating like a bearish consolidation off that ADMA on the 5-minute chart in the beginning of the day. In a weak market, this is a recipe for failure to roll over, break the opening low, and continue down. Um, I just felt, based on the bigger picture support, all the thought processes that we already discussed, how far we were off the pre-market low, and then these tails that were coming in on the downside, where sellers were trying to have this thing fail down off the ADMA, and buyers were stepping in and driving it right back up each time, all led me to believe that we could break this consolidation to the upside for the market. If we break this consolidation to the upside in the market, we get a gap fill. If we get a close well, it becomes the pivot on the daily chart. That's what my thought process was. So I was really trying to come in and use this as an opportunity to be buying today, buying the dip, and holding those buys for some bigger moves. So that was my thought process there. Do you think we move into NVIDIA tomorrow and the holidays? It would be wise to try to hold some of our plays for a bigger move. I think NVIDIA is the big wild card. If anything, the end of the year holidays uh, help to contribute to the bullish seasonality of this period of time. So, um, my thought process is that we continue to move higher, but NVIDIA can totally derail that. So we'll see. From Apex Joy, what's your view on SMCI? I already talked about that one in a lot of detail, so I think I answered that one already. TT Trader mentioning Benzinga Pro is another great resource. Totally agree. Benzinga is great. It's cool that they let me join them in the mornings once a month or so. That's been fun. Kevin G letting us know Powell Industries beat on EPS. Sales was a little bit of a miss. Okay. Beat on EPS, missed on sales, seems a little bit mixed. You need to see the guidance in conjunction with that. I also feel like it's a tough stock to trade. So that kind of covers the YouTube there. We already covered the VTF. So I guess we'll wrap it up. Have a great night, everybody. I hope everybody had a really good day today. I think that we were really on the right side of the thought process insofar as trying to buy this market today. So I hope some of you guys were able to get some decent moves. Have a great night. I will see you all tomorrow.